Hello out there, and welcome to today's class. Once upon a time, one of you out there made a request about improvising or soloing, as some say, over a G7 vamp. So I figured I'd talk about today. We're going to talk about how to improvise over a G dominant 7th vamp. Different ways we can approach it. Different ways we can juxtapose arpeggios over a vamping G7, different scales and or modes that we can use to improvise over a G7. So let's get started. I'm gonna loop a G7. I'm gonna loop this voicing. Maybe later I'll do a drone, but for now, a little funk. Got that little bass in there. Drop down to the flat 7. 2, 3, and. So we got our loop. Now, how to start things off, right? How are we going to start things off? There's so many things we can do over a G7 vamp. But off the bat, you gotta play the arpeggio. Play that arpeggio. Do you know how to just play the notes of G7, right? Let's try a few. I'm just gonna go up the arpeggio. 1, 3, 5, flat 7, right? Oh, that's just the arpeggio. So you want to get that on every place you can. Open. Bringing in my open strings. Just the arpeggio, right? Can you do that? 1, 3, 5, 7. We want to express the harmony melodically. We want to express the chord melodically, right? Which means arpeggiate. How about on a single string? Different single string. So, step 1, just the G7 arpeggio. Can you play it? Can you make it happen? Can you do it in all different parts of the neck, different ways, right? Different string sets, different single strings, right? Really playing a single string. Anyway, so then what? All right, then what do? What we're going to do is we're going to take a G7 arpeggio and we're going to add something. We're going to add one pitch. Let's just add one pitch, and we'll start with the quote-unquote natural notes, right? The quote-unquote non-altered pitches, right? So let's do our G7 arpeggio again, but we're going to add the 9. Adding the 9, nothing else. What does that do to you? Alright, one more time, a little higher up. And as you begin adding pitches, you can experiment different ways. For instance, I might go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Really put it an octave higher, right? Resolve, right? I could put the 9 in the same octave, right? The second. Do both things. Sounds nice. Alright, well, let's add something else. Now we're going to add the 4, right? So 1, 3, 4, 5, flat 7. Got that dissonance between the 3rd and the 4th, right? That's fun. Same thing applies. You can put it up an octave or not, right? If I put it up an octave, keep it in the same octave, right? The quote-unquote the 4 instead of the 11. Same difference, different similarities, you know. Should we add something else? Let's add the sharp 4, because you know, if you're really hip, you know that the sharp 4 is actually more natural than the natural 4. Did you know that? Oh well. There's my sharp 4. Cool, right? Once again, right, we're just thinking arpeggio with something added. I like this area, this. If you really want to be crazy, can you add, you know, that extension, or, you know, this additional interval you're bringing into the mix? Can you express it as a chord, right? So there I got 1, 3, sharp 4, flat 7, right? So, right, we can hang out in these sounds all day. I'm going to keep going. So now, right, we've added the second. We've added the fourth. Let's add, oh, we added the sharp 4. Let's add the 6, right? E natural in this case. And this is a cool sound. You're getting that half step from the 6 to the flat 7. Try them at the same time. A little higher up. Rock and roll. Okay, so from here on out, right, we would be adding, you know, quote-unquote altered extensions, right? We added the second, the fourth, the sharp 4, the 6. So now let's try adding the flat 9, or the flat second. Pretty cool. Alright. Ooh, added the 4, don't do that, not yet. Know what you're doing, right? Know where the 1, the 3, the 5, the flat 7, and the flat 9 in this case are. Name what you're doing, at least, you know, enough to know what you're doing. Alright, there's our flat 9 sound. Just jamming over a G7. Let's go ahead and add the flat 3rd, right, or the flat 10. Yeah, flat 3. Here we go, flat 3 and natural 3. Right. So we got 1, 3, 5, flat 7, 1, flat 3. Okay, we got that bluesy mix of the thirds. So now there's a minor triad and a major triad in this thing. Okay, so we added the flat 9, we added the flat 3. Let's go ahead and do the flat 6 now. And you know, as you add these extra pitches, you just want to get a sense of that flavor, right? Like, remember, this is just over a dominant 7th chord, so how many flavors and spices, can we add to a dominant 7th chord, and how acquainted can we get with those flavors and or spices, right? Now we could try adding the major 7, right? So you're going to have this clash between the flat 7 and the major 7. Yeah, you could, right? Displace them by an octave. You gotta be... really, I'm just using that F sharp as almost a grace note to resolve the thing. I think it is good to get used to chromatic pairs and these chromatic dissonances. Okay, so, alright, so we went through a G7 arpeggio and added every possible extra pitch, right? The flat 9, the 9, the flat 3, the 4, the sharp 4, the flat 6, all those, right? Even the major 7, which plenty of people say, why would you do that, right? But why not? Just because it's there, let's hear what the sound is like, right? What it does to us. So now, right, if we add another pitch, right, then we're officially in a 6-tone thing, and we could go through all those, but we're just going to go ahead and go into scales or modes now, right, adding a collection of 7 pitches in relation to the chord, right? And naturally we'll start with the old, it's a great one in the mix, good old Mixolydian. And initially, ask yourself, can you just go up and down? Even one octave. And remember, Mixolydian is simply a major scale with the 7th flatted, right? So, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I kind of consider this the rock and roll major scale. Right. And then, we've been going through these arpeggios. Can you find the G7 in there? Right. Sure can. Can you find the 9? Hope so. The 11? The 13? That's all the pitches. There's our G Mixolydian. Let's go through some scales, right? So that's G Mixolydian. Let's do a Lydian dominant, right? So what's Lydian dominant? Well, that's the Mixolydian scale with a sharp 4, right? So 2, let's try that. 3, and hit. And if these are some new sounds, new scales to you, get acquainted with that new pitch, that sharp 4. Like, what's going on with that, right? The sharp 4 and the flat 7, those are really the character-defining things of this particular note set, so hang out with them, right? Can you arpeggiate, the 1, 3, 5, flat 7? And then add something from the scale, like the sharp 4. Add a little something extra in there. Okay, so that's Lydian dominant, right? 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, flat 7. Pretty good. Actually, in all these scales and arpeggios I'm presenting to you, you really should try and do them on one string, right? Dominant 7th arpeggio. Let's add the sharp 4. Let's add the sharp 4 and the 9. Let's throw the 6 in there as well. That's Lydian dominant. What other scale might we use, eh? Man, you've been enjoying this G7. We're just chilling on the G7. How about Mixolydian flat 6? So all that is the Mixolydian scale with a flatted 6. So we get a little more dramatic, a little more passionate. Getting a sense of what does that flat 6 do. Really, you should always examine every half step, because those have a lot of pull, a lot of gravity to them, right? Like here, and resolve, right? That's Mixolydian flat 6, the quote-unquote 5th mode of melodic minor. Let's keep going, right? So another Mixolydian scale, we can do Mixolydian flat 2, flat 6. And this is the 5th mode of harmonic minor. And I forgot to mention earlier that Lydian dominant, that's the 4th mode of melodic minor. And if none of this means anything to you, but you're still here and you're interested in learning and knowing and understanding and playing all these fun things, then click the link down there so that we can talk about you really understanding music theory, understanding how it shows up on the fretboard, and how to use it to make music that you love to make. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in doing, click the link down there. Let's talk about music and your journey and learning and rocking and rolling onward into more about G dominant 7. So anyways, let's do that G Mixolydian flat 9, flat 6. There's my flat 9. Ooh, where's my flat 6? Here it is. That's 1, flat 2, 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. Here's my 1. Now when you're starting to add some flat notes, it's very cool to explore your quote-unquote your in notes, or your more stable sounds like the arpeggio, and explore those sounds in relation to these flat notes or these out notes or these altered notes. Let's put my flat 9 in there. Alright, cool sounds. And you know, a lot of the times when this is a vamp on G7, right? A lot of the times when we're playing over a G7, it's as a means of resolution. But not in this lesson. Today we're just vamping. Okay, what other scale might we use? How about Mixolydian flat 9, but natural 6, right? And this, I believe, is the 5th mode of harmonic major. Who's ever done that one? I don't know. Oh, here we go. 3. Here we go. So it's a bright sound with that flat 2, though. It throws in a splash of darkness. so what have we gone over? We've gone over vamping on this G7, and what do we do, right? Initially, we would just play the arpeggio. Then we would play the arpeggio +1, like the 9, or the 4, or the 6, right? Adding something in relation to the arpeggio of the chord. We could also add 2, like the 9 and the 6. So we have a 6-tone scale here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tones, right? And if you add one more pitch, you're officially either in a mode, or you'll have a chromatic pair somewhere, which is also cool. But then we went through those modes, right? Mixolydian, Lydian dominant, Mixolydian flat 6, Mixolydian flat 6 flat 9. I don't know why I'm hanging out in this area in particular, but here I am. Mixolydian flat 9 natural 6. Yeah. Now, this next idea is probably worth its own video, but we'll talk about it. And that idea is the juxtaposition of arpeggios over the chord, right? So we started with just G7, right? But there's so many other arpeggios out there that we can use, believe it or not. For instance, if I'm looking at G7, of course I can do G7. What if I do B minor 7 flat 5? Right? Now, so what does that mean? It says I'm using a minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio off the third of the chord, right? So that's 3, 5, flat 7, 9, right? I'm playing the 3, 5, flat 7, and 9. Now I could build something off the 5th. What if I did a D minor 7 off the 5th? What does that give me? That gives me the 5th, the flat 7, the 9, and the 11. So I'm essentially articulating a G11. There's my D minor 7 arpeggio. Alright, so notice that I'm building with arpeggios off the root of the chord, obviously the G7, but then also off the 3rd, off the 5th, and off the 7, right? What if I build an arpeggio off the 7, right? So that'd be an F. I'm doing all natural notes in this situation. It'd be an F major 7. And what does that give me? That gives me the flat 7, the 9, the 11, and the 13. I'm effectively playing a G13 kind of sound here. And I'm thinking F major 7 arpeggio. Alright, but always in relation to that G, because we're vamping on G, okay? So notice once again I built an arpeggio off the root. Minor 7 flat 5 off the 3rd, which gave me a 9 chord. Minor 7 off the 5, giving me an 11 arpeggio, you could say. And then finally off the flat 7, F, playing a major 7 arpeggio. And that's giving me the flat 7, 9, 11, 13. So all of this is stuff you can mix and match and play with and sequence and go through to really kind of play with the gravity and the Play-Doh of a G7 sound, right? Try and be aware of the arpeggio you're using. F major 7, B minor 7 flat 5, D minor 6, D minor 13. I'll use the 6 and the 7. And then when I want to get simple, back to G7. Alright? So things to think about. There that sequence of arpeggios was all brought from G major, or pardon me, G mixolydian. Just going through the old harmonization of that, right? Now, yeah, we can keep going, right? So that was pulling arpeggios from mixolydian to juxtapose, right, over the vamp to give me some extensions, some cool sounds, right? Let's try building with some extensions and arpeggios from melodic minor, right? We could say really from mixolydian flat 6. It's going to give us some different arpeggios. Like off the 1, I still get G7. Off the 2, still get minor 7 flat 5. Off the 5, right? I'm going to get a D minor still, D minor 7 still. So everything's the same. But now I'm going to build off the F, right, the flat 7. And now instead of E natural, I get an E flat. So what's going on here? Instead of an F major 7 off the flat 7 degree, I've got an F7 off the flat 7 degree, giving me the flat 7, 9, 11, and flat 13 of my G7 chord. Hope you're with me here. G mixolydian flat 6. And then the 7th chord arpeggios from that scale juxtaposed over the chord. Dominant 7, nothing out of the ordinary, minor 7 flat 5, nothing out of the ordinary, minor 7. Off the 5th, nothing out of the ordinary. Finally, we get to the flat 7 degree, the F. We got to take account of that E flat. And I notice it likes to drop right down into the 5th of the chord, that E flat. Alright, flat 13 to the 5th. Okay. Now I'm just sort of using the scale. Flat 13. Okay, so now let's draw from some arpeggios from mixolydian flat 6, flat 9, right? So here's our scale. Oh, one more time. And we want to arpeggiate and take account of the flat 9 and the flat 6. Let's see what we get, right? So off the 1st degree, it's still G7. Handy dandy. Off the 3rd degree, what's going on now? Now we have, off the 3rd degree, a fully diminished 7th chord because of the A flat. Whereas previously we had a minor 7 flat 5, right? Or quote unquote half diminished. Now it's full diminished. And what does that give us? That gives us the 3rd, the 5th, the flat 7, and flat 9. So I'm arpeggiating a G7 flat 9, you could say. And hear how those flat 9s and flat 6s like to resolve a half step down. Alright. Let's keep going, right? So we built an arpeggio off the G, built arpeggios off the B, let's build it off the D. What's that going to give us? It's going to give us D, F, A flat, so that's D diminished, right? Up to the C. So we have now, off the 5th degree, a minor 7 flat 5, or a half diminished off of D. Well, so what does that give us, right? That gives us the 5th, the flat 7, the flat 9, and the 11. So a dominant 7, flat 9, or rather an 11, flat 9 arpeggio. Last one, we'll build off the flat 7 degree of our chord, the G7, and off the F, that's going to give us F and A flat, C natural, and E flat. So what is that? That's an F minor 7 arpeggio off the flat 7 degree of our G7. And what does that give us? Flat 7, flat 9, 11, flat 13. So you could say I'm essentially arpeggiating a G dominant 7, flat 9, flat 13. 2, 3, and. Shall we keep going? What would be next? We arpeggiated Mixolydian, we arpeggiated Mixolydian flat 6, we arpeggiated Mixolydian flat 9, flat 6. Let's arpeggiate Lydian dominant. Ooh, here we go. Right, so that'd be G7 off the 1. Now off the 3rd degree, what do we got? We got B, D, F, and A. Nothing out of the ordinary. That's a G9. Same thing as G Mixolydian. We're just keeping an eye out for that sharp 4. And so if I build off the D, or the 5th degree of my G7, D, F, A, here's the game, the C sharp. So what does that mean? That means off the 5th degree of my G7, if I arpeggiate a minor major 7 chord, right? I got a G11, or rather G7 sharp 11, pardon me. I'll say that all one more time. When I arpeggiate a minor major 7 off the 5th degree of my dominant chord, right? So D minor major 7, in this case, as we vamp on G7, I essentially get a G7 sharp 11. Hope you can see that because it's cool. And then finally off the F, right? The 7th degree, we've got F, A, C sharp, E, yeah. Now this is interesting. So that's the flat 7, the 9, the flat, the sharp 4. One more time, that's the flat 7, the 9, sharp 4, 13. So essentially a 13 sharp 11 arpeggio, more or less, right? Building off the 7th degree. 7, 9, sharp 11, 13, 1. Ba, 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 boo, ba, ba, boo. What more? Is there more to do? How about just good old Mixolydian flat 2, right? So off the 1st degree, I'd get G7. Off the 2nd degree, I get my whole diminished, my B fully diminished 7. And remember, what does that give me? That gives me the 3rd, the 11, the flat 7, and the flat 9. Now off the 5th degree, all right, I've got D, F, A flat, C natural. So I've got a half diminished off the 5th degree, right? That's the 5th, flat 7, flat 9, and the 11. So essentially, turning this G7 into a G11 flat 9. Okay, pretty cool, right? And now finally off the 7th degree, or the flat 7th degree, the F. Got my flat 7, got my A flat, flat 9, got my C natural. Okay, so that's an F minor triad, and I got my E up here. Now that's cool. What is that? That's giving me the flat 7, the flat 9, the 11, and the 13. So essentially I'm turning my G7 chord into an 13 flat 9 chord. Cool, right? So this is a lot of ways to approach improvising over a G7 vamp. So you want to practice these things, but then you just kind of want to let it go and just see what you do with what you practice. Maybe don't do that, but oh, and last one. This is maybe the best one, is always the blues scale. And then mixing all that together with the arpeggiations, with the blues scale, with some juxtapositions, with some modal stuff, with some noise, with some taps, and some chaos, and then bring it all back to the arpeggio. Right? It all started with that arpeggio. It can all end with the arpeggio. On a single string. If you want to be the cool cat. Well, that's today's lesson on improvising over a G7 vamp, or, things we can use to improvise over a G7 vamp. Now, if you enjoyed this lesson and you're really eager to take things deeper in terms of understanding theory, music theory, harmonic theory, in terms of really understanding the fretboard and how to move around and get around and understand how this is all laid out, and better yet, how to see where the theory is on this thing, right? How can we use our understanding of theory, map it on the fretboard, and then use all of that to be rock and roll, super duper cosmic jazz composer, improviser, madmen or women or beings? If you want to explore that question, click the link down there. Let's get on the phone. Let's talk about your musical goals and how I can help you realize them. My name is Jakob. Thanks for hanging out. Jam on G7. Enjoy. I'll catch you down the road. Adios.